everybody. Welcome to the Art of Shame-Free Living podcast. I almost said the Parenting Coach podcast. I've done so many episodes of those. Anyways, if you didn't know, I ran a podcast for 4.5 years, like well over 200 episodes. We had a lot over there. Anyways, so the Art of Shame-Free Living podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about how your faith crisis might not actually be a crisis. This feels like a tender episode, but I feel like it's very necessary. The words that we use matter. The meaning that we attach to them matters. And I think so many of us, when we start to question the religion or the faith that we grew up in, we feel like it's a crisis. It feels huge and it feels really big. And it feels like there's nowhere we can go to talk to other people about it. So I'm going to start back in childhood for a minute. There's a couple things I want to mention about childhood. There is a natural order of things. There's an emotional developmental process that we go through when we're younger. When we have been raised in a securely attached home and environment, there's these phases that we go through that develop, that mature us. And one of those, I read about this when I was reading Rest, Play, Grow for Preschoolers and Anyone Who Acts Like It by Dr. Deborah McNamara years ago. She was talking about one of these phases being like differentiation. I am not my mother. My mother and I are separate beings. And because we're separate beings, I have my own thoughts. I have my own opinions. I have my own beliefs, and she has hers. And that this is very important. We don't want to think that we are our mother. We don't want to have to attach to them all of the time and just be clinging to them all of the time and only think their beliefs and opinions and ideas. We want to understand we're a separate being, they're a separate being, and it's okay for me to have different thoughts and opinions and beliefs than my mother and also than other people. Oftentimes we don't do this. We do this zero-sum game thing where it's like, if I'm wrong about this, then I feel wrong, like there's something wrong with me, like shame, inadequacy. And because it's bringing that up, now I have to convince you that you're actually wrong so that I don't have to feel so bad, because we just inherently think that if we're wrong about something, then we are wrong. We're not doing this consciously, but unconsciously, we definitely feel this way. And so it really creates a lot of division, like about politics, about religion, about all of the fights that you see online and in person happening with all of that blame and that defensiveness. At the root is always shame and inadequacy and this idea of maybe I am wrong if my opinion's wrong. So which makes it pretty much impossible to have a conversation with somebody where they're really open to understanding, open to new ways of thinking, of creative solutions, of new ideas. All that to say, in childhood, when this doesn't happen, when we haven't developed this way, then it can really kind of be disastrous for us and for our growth. And so we're supposed to be separating. We're supposed to be differentiating us. What are my opinions? What are my beliefs? What are my ideas separate of my mother? Also, how we relate to our parents in childhood and how they relate to us is often our go-to when we think about God. Because even though we know consciously that maybe we've been taught that God is loving, or whatever you have been taught in your faith that God is or isn't, we still relate to them as if we relate to our mom and dad. So if our mom and dad gave us a lot of praise and love and attention and connection when we were good, but the opposite when we were bad, a lot of cutting off, a lot of separation, a lot of punishment, a lot of shame when we were bad. We're bad, we're good. I'm going to put those in air quotes because that's very speculative. But anyways, so as that happens, we start to relate to God that way, and we believe that God relates to us that way. And it really starts to it makes our relationship with God super messy. Our relationship with Creator, Spirit, whatever you want to call it, whatever you believe that's out there, that's your higher power, it makes it really messy because that's all that we have to relate to. So if we didn't have a super good, securely attached childhood, which I think pretty much everybody didn't, I don't think a lot of people knew a lot about secure attachment or shame-free parenting or emotional intelligence. Like all of these things are kind of newer. And so unless you just like innately had parents that kind of figured out healing on their own, you're probably like most of us where we weren't raised in a home like that. And so this development might be a little bit delayed. This way of being might be a little bit delayed. Anyways, fast forward to marriage. I want to talk about marriage and partnership for a minute too. I was listening to a podcast episode the other day that Jennifer Finlayson-Fife was on. She is a sex therapist. She's really fabulous. And she was talking about this idea of differentiation within partnership and how we kind of have to separate in order to come back together again. So often we start as like codependent, right? Like my needs are mixed up with their needs, and like I need them to validate me, and we need all of this from them, and they need all of this stuff from us. And it's not necessarily the healthiest way of being. And so over time, we separate. We move to independence, where I am my own person. I am becoming me. They are becoming them. We're separating. We're differentiating, just like we did when we were younger with our parents, right? We're doing the same process now with our partnership. The goal not being to end there, but to come back to interdependence, to come back to a we state, a being state where we are connected, but now in a much healthier way, where we don't need validation, but we can give support and we can give love and we can share our truth and we can really be authentic. And I think that's the goal of marriage. And as she was speaking, she didn't use this analogy, but the analogy that came to my mind was two rocks being tumbled together in a rock tumbler. If you've ever seen a rock tumbler, you put some like grit in it and you turn it on. And it actually takes a really long time. We gave ours away because it was like 30 days later and we finally had these shiny rocks and it was like not worth it, the energy bill or the time that it took. So it took a lot of time, and these rocks would bump together against like dirt and against grime and against all of the things, but most importantly against each other to smooth off the edges. And so we can be in a partnership like that where we're bumping up against each other and it's actually smoothing us out. We're actually becoming more ourselves because of the bumping together, or we can stay separated. We're both on our own rock tumblers. We're both doing our own things, but not together. Or we can go off into our own way, move on to another partnership where we're like, well, maybe this will be easier. Well, you're always going to bump up against that. The goal is the bumping up against thatness. So that's another form where differentiation is really healthy, is really important in order to then come back to connection after differentiation. One thing she mentioned in this podcast episode, I cannot even remember the name of it, but one podcast episode that she mentioned was doing this with church, doing this with religion also. So likely you were taught religion in a pretty specific way if you grew up in a religious household. It was probably very in the box. This is what you do. This is what you don't do. This is the nature of God. This is right. This is wrong. This is good. This is good. This is bad. These are the boundaries. These are the parameters. You stay within this or you don't. And everything seemed probably very clear and concise. I think that there's a reason for that. I think that it gives us a sense of safety, a sense of security, a sense of peace. Just like when we were really little, we needed to know that we were going to be taken care of. We didn't want to be questioning all of those things when we were tiny little babies, right? We just wanted to know we're taken care of. Everything was very simple. And then as we start to grow, like differentiate, there's more happening. So I think religiously that happens also. There's a man named John Kessler. I found him through Thomas McConkie, and he talks about adult stages of development. That there's actually more adult stages of development than there is child development. And since I'm just like loving development, all the things, I was like, oh yes, like this makes so much sense. And it just put words to what I already believed. But I think that there is a stage of development that we go through spiritually where everyone goes through this. If they choose to, I guess they can choose not to. But I think it's a sign of emotional maturity to get to the phase where we are differentiating ourselves. What do I actually believe apart from what I've been taught my whole life? What actually feels like truth to me? We kind of step out of the box a little bit and we kind of start to look at things in a different perspective. And we get to a space where it's okay that I might have different opinions and beliefs than everybody else in my same religion. It's okay that I might have different opinions and beliefs than everybody in my extended family or even in my family. I don't know what a not extended family is, but your immediate family, I guess. That's also okay. That it's okay for me to believe and feel differently. And also uncertainty is okay. It's okay that I don't know everything yet, that I can't just go up and be like, I know that this part of this thing is absolutely true without a shadow of a doubt. And that it's okay for me to not be at that space, that's all okay too. And I think when we put these terms on it, like, oh, this is like a faith crisis, and we start feeling like, oh no, like that person and like what they're going through, it really isolates people. It feels so isolating. When like, if this was a normal developmental process that all of us should be looking forward to and going through, of like questioning, of wondering, what do I believe apart from what I've been told? What feels like truth to me? Making things a little bit more malleable, a little bit maybe uncertain, maybe moving into the uncertainty a little bit more. I always think of that story in the Bible where the rich man wanted his son healed, and he comes to Jesus and is like, can you heal him? And Jesus says, do you have faith? And he says, Lord, I have faith, but also I doubt, help my unbelief. Something like bless my unbelief or bless me in my unbelief. And Jesus heals his son. And I'm totally butchering the words in there. You'll have to go actually read it in the Bible to get it better. But anyways, the idea behind that being we can have unbelief. We can have doubt. In fact, I think faith is the presence of doubt, not the absence of doubt. Or else it would be knowledge. We would just know for certainty. There's a lot of things that I don't have certainty around. There's a lot of things that I have faith and that I have hope and that I have trust for, which also means that there's a presence of doubt there, and that's okay with me. And I think that that is a more expansive view I like to call it faith expansion, that it's okay if I don't believe everything that everybody else believes in the same way that everybody else believes it. I also think that this is a great space for innovation and change and healing and forward momentum and growth, expansion. That's why I think I love the term faith expansion. So if you're in this throes of feeling that way, like maybe you're on the right track, like maybe it's not a bad thing. And also, I would say, don't stop there. Don't stop in the, I don't know what I believe space. Reconstruct also, don't just deconstruct. Deconstruct means I took apart all the things I thought that I believed, but reconstruct, what do I actually believe? What feels like truth to me? What feels good in my soul? Spend time really searching for those answers internally inside of yourself. One of my favorite quotes from Rumi is, I searched for God and found only myself. I searched for myself and found only God. Take time in stillness. Take time to search. Take time to reconstruct. Don't just end at the deconstruction process. Take time to recognize, like, this is a normal stage of faith and development that I'm going through. And it's good. It's good. It's a good, wholesome space to be in, and it's okay to be there. And I would also add, as like a parenting coach for 5 years, go to the space where you start to heal your relationship with both yourself and with your parenting, the parenting that you received in your childhood, so that you can reorient yourself to a different nature of God than maybe you have been relating yourself to. I actually have a course called Faith-Based Parenting that's like changing my relationship with myself, my relationship with God, and therefore my relationship with my kids, and how I parent changes at this root. And it's my favorite course I've ever taught. It's one of the only courses I ever still sell. I have changed so many over the years because I feel like my business is a living, breathing, organic, changing thing, and I change my opinions a lot. But this is one that has just always felt so true to me. So you can go check that out as well. It's coachcrystal.ca/faith, FAITH. If you want some help with that process, because I think it's more subconscious, it's more in the body, it's going to take more stillness, more pause, more really deep thinking, less looking outside yourself. Don't just scroll through social media following other people and listening to what they're saying. Don't just only read books of other people's experiences. Take time to create your own internal book, to look at your own internal stories, to find stillness within your own soul. And you might feel a little bit less of it being a crisis, even though it might feel big, and more of an expansion. But expansion also includes contraction. Expansion includes expanding one way and expanding the other way. And so it can still feel heavy. It can still feel hard, and it will sometimes feel isolating. But I think that more of us can talk about this, and more of us can make it more normal, as it is an actual stage of development that we're going through, by differentiating ourselves and by coming back together again. Just like all of the other processes I talked about, differentiation and then coming back into this interconnectedness as a more whole self, as a more whole being. I think that's the goal within religion and faith traditions as well, is that we come back to something with a more whole being, the more whole sense of interconnectedness. So thanks for being here. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to share it, like, comment, subscribe, whatever it is you can do on whatever platform you're listening to. And we'll see you next week.